Hi there, my name is Paul Davis, and I'm an intuitive business consultant. And I help people to discover what their true unique life purpose is. And then I help them to build a business around what their life purpose is so they can make a bigger impact. And I'm delighted to be here with Pearl, and I'm so excited for our conversation to take place.
Hey everybody, it's Pearl, and I want to welcome you back to another Conversations with Pearl. I'm so excited because very uniquely, we actually have a gentleman on the show for you guys today. And I know some of you are like, what? Normally it's women, but men can empower us as well. And so today we are so excited to share with you Paul William Davis, who is a renowned business growth consultant, sought after speaker, and intuitive personal advisor who has a passion for empowering professionals worldwide to unearth their unique genius and lead in their field. As a creator of the Executive Code, which is a 3-time best-selling author, Paul is dedicated to helping individuals discover their true purpose, tap into unparalleled fulfillment, and make a profound impact. Often hailed as the lifesaver by his clients, Paul has a remarkable talent for identifying core elements that bring joy, meaning, and personal growth. His intuitive approach, combined with decades of entrepreneurial experience, has transformed countless struggling businesses into multi-million euro success stories. With a client list that spans industry leaders, celebrities, and intuitive entrepreneurs, Paul's expertise transcends borders and sectors. As an award-winning consultant and visionary thought leader, Paul William Davis is committed to guiding you on a transformative journey of self-discovery, purpose-driven growth, and lasting prosperity. I'm so excited to have and introduce you guys today to Paul William Davis. Paul, welcome to the show.
I'm delighted to be here, Pearl. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So tell everybody where you're coming in from.
I'm coming in from Dublin in Ireland. So as you can probably guess from the accent, I'm not in America.
Exactly. And last time, Paul and I always interview everybody before we have him on the show. And I shared with him how Ireland is my mother's bucket list to before she leaves this beautiful world to go and visit and see. And so hopefully we can make that happen for her, but it's definitely on my bucket list too. So we will definitely connect when we come across the world to see you, Paul.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit like what was like growing up for you and what led you into doing what you do today?
Yeah, well, I suppose that I have a bit of an unusual story compared to a lot of people in growing up. So, yeah, as I said earlier on, I'm from Ireland. And when I was born the seventh son of a seventh. Now, in Ireland, there's a lot of folklore and Celtic tradition around being the seventh son. So when I was born and brought as being the seventh son in the family, my parents automatically knew, okay, so maybe Paul has a gift. So there's a little test that people do in order to see whether you do actually have the gift, and it's a gift of healing. So which I successfully passed that particular test. So what actually transpired from there then at a very young age was that I would have people come to the house and I would do a healing for them. So whether it be from, rheumatism, cancer, migraines, you name it, all different types of ailments and all different walks of life and all different people come to the house and I'd give them a healing. But something that is in the tradition of being the seventh son at that time was, and this is just, I find this quite common amongst people that have gifts in this way, whereby you can't receive anything in return. So I was doing the healing, and even though I was saying, okay, and people would say, they'd want to give a gift or they'd want to give money and so on. My mum would say, no, absolutely not. No, it's a God-given gift. So there's nothing to be exchanged. So for me, growing up was very, very different to my siblings, let alone my peers. But when I went through school like normal, most teenagers and all that kinds of things. Particularly didn't like school. I used to get bullied and beaten up and all that kind of things for a lot of different reasons. But then when I left school and I got my first job, it was actually the finance director in the company I was working within. He saw that I had an aptitude for numbers. And he said, look at what I consider doing accountancy. So I started a short course that only took 2 years and I flew through those exams. And from that, then I moved into management accountancy, which is a 4-year degree, studying part-time while I was working in the company, a different company at that time, which was responsible for aircraft engine maintenance. So you can see behind me, I have a lot of elements associated with aviation, and I use aviation in my business as well. But suppose that there's two parts to me. One is, yes, I was the logical and the analytical accountant side of me, and I developed my career in going into companies and turning around very, very quickly and building them into huge levels of success, multi-million dollar companies. And I set up my own business in 2001 with the same focus to help companies, primarily people in professional services, to grow and scale and to get more clients, increase their fees and manage their time more effectively. But the other side to me was quite hidden, which was the intuitive side, because growing up, I didn't really understand it. And when I was doing the healing, it wasn't explained to me. It wasn't, I wasn't taught as regards how to do healing. I was just doing healings. But as I grew older, I understood more the intuitive and the empathic side of me. And that made an awful lot more sense when it was explained to me by different people, but also what the information I was actually receiving for people. So what I would get will be images, knowings, and insights in relation to people that I was working with. And hence the reason when I was a business consultant, I could turn companies around very, very quickly. So I have a 100% success rate in turning every company around that I worked with. And in fact, what I was doing, I was guiding the business and the business owners within the companies in order to fulfill what was going to reach them the highest level of success. And over the decades, I suppose I got to know and fine tune that this the analytical side of me in terms of understanding what kind of information I was actually receiving, because there's timelines involved, there's different events and episodes that happen for people and so on. And what I found was it was actually in line with what their core key purpose is and their unique life purpose. So that gave me a huge, massive understanding from that perspective. Because what I always wanted growing up was the information that I would share with clients, the insights and the imagery. I would try and convey the images that I would get and the knowings that I would get for clients. I desperately wanted that for me, meaning that I wanted somebody to come to me and say, look, Paul, here's what you're to do. Here's what your purpose is. Here's what direction you should go in. And I could never find that answer. I could never find somebody who could actually give me that information. And I tried everything, what everybody else does in terms of, find your passions and doing your ikigai and all that kind of things. But it didn't give me the answers that I was looking for. So I've spent decades researching and developing my own methodology in order to match the knowings and the insights and the imagery that I would get for clients. And that's hence the reason why now it's developed into a methodology which discovers an individual's unique life purpose without necessarily me having to rely on the intuitive side. Because now it looks for the evidence in a person's life in order to guide them to what their true life purpose is.
It's so powerful. And I was sitting here just thinking about you as a child, and I can't think of the movie. I watched it on TV recently. It was a little girl who got, this gift, and she was seeing God everywhere, and people were coming to her for healing. And then she had gotten sick. I don't know what it's called. I watched like a month ago, and I thought about you. I went back there, but as you being back there as this young boy who has this gift and not sure, I thought about how she reacted to, what do I do with this gift? Why don't I share it? And then, as like you were saying, you took us through the journey of becoming, a young adult and then into your adulthood and how you're using it in businesses. Sometimes we forget, we don't listen. I say this all the time, and to the listeners, you're going to hear me say this again right now. So just bear with me. And that is that and then, you got to talk about the seventh son and everything. I never had heard about that before. But for me, I truly believe that we all come into this world with a gift, no matter who you believe. For me, it's God, whatever your higher being is that you believe. And that gift is ingrained in our DNA. And when we don't listen or watch or feel it, we cheat ourselves. And when we don't use it for ourselves, now you've not just cheated yourself, but you're cheating me, right? Like I would not have been able to receive and understand what you're sharing today and your clients, right, Paul, for what you're helping your clients do. If I had kept this gift of my love for coaching and my love for wanting other women to not feel like they have to do everything and to let the judge and saboteur tell them you have to say yes to everything and you have to be busy all the time and you should feel guilty when you say no to somebody. Had I not learned that and listened to it for myself, I would be overwhelmed, stressed out still. And then taking that talent and sharing with women. And I'm watching women who step into their voice of the word no to others and yes to themselves. I'm watching them learning how to communicate their realistic expectations with their family and loved ones. I have a client just the other day, last week we were together, her husband was like, "Oh, Pearl, I remember when she came to me about XYZ." And I was like, "Where'd that come from?" And he said she found her voice, and he was very proud of the fact that she found her voice and that they can communicate in that love language that they both have for one another. And so, I was sitting here thinking, had you, as a young child, not listened to that, how it could have changed. And then, taking that gift and sharing it to other businesses and helping them, turn their businesses around and seeing what truly they should be doing with their business. But what I found interesting that you said, and, oftentimes I know for the past year, it was a year ago yesterday that we laid our son to rest at 25 years old. And I've had so many people say to me, "You're so strong. How have you gotten through this?" And had I not had some of that things I've gone through and that understanding that I have to take care of myself and put my cape on first, I don't know that I would have made it through. I probably would have figured it out, but not as quickly as I have. And every day it's still a journey. I mean, I get up, I tell my friends, I still get up every morning and I miss him. I can't rewind the clock. It's not going to change anything. It's not going to bring him back. So I have to live my life as he saw me live it when he was here on the earth. And so, but I thought about you when you said, how, had I not done that for myself and not listened to those things and not had somebody who paid it forward to me and helped me learn how to, like what you do with your clients, learn how to turn that into something that I can pay it forward. And also, let's be real, make a business out of it and earn some income from it. But when I wrote down when you said wanting somebody to show you the direction on how to do that, right? It's like, sometimes we do for others. And I saw this today on TikTok, and I saved it for later to share, where somebody said, they were talking about how you look at me like I'm so strong. You look at me that I'm doing all these things. You look at me that I'm, all these things. But really, do you ever stop and ask me, do I really like being all those things? Or do I like doing it on my own, right? Do you reach out to somebody and say, "Hey, Pearl, hey, Paul, I see you doing all these things. It's great. And what can I do to help you?" Right? Sometimes we forget to sit back and pay that forward in a different way. And I love that you took yourself on that journey of the flight, because I love the aviation piece. I'm going to tie that in there. You took yourself on this flight of finding what to do with this gift, how to incorporate this gift for yourself, but then you found a way to incorporate the gift to pay it forward. And I think it's really cool that your mom at a young age said, "No, he's not going to take any tithing back from you for this. It's a gift," right? Because sometimes, and for the listeners that are listening, sometimes we have to recognize that everything is about receiving. Sometimes it is a gift that you pay it forward. And sometimes it's a gift that when you pay it forward, you can impact somebody else's life. It's kind of like the month of July, when my son passed last year on July 22, I think it was within 7 to 10 days, we had a young man show up at my doorstep wanting to see my son, because my son pretty much he had lived with us, but he had been in the process of moving in with his girlfriend. So he thought he was still living here. And I had to let him know that my son had passed away. And I've had many instances with that. And I believe that I'm being used in that way because for whatever reason, my phone has been merged with his phone number. I don't know how it happened. I didn't do anything to make it happen, but I will get these random text messages and say, "Hey, what's up? I haven't seen you online." I'm like going, "Are you trying to reach Matthew or Pearl?" And even like 2 weeks ago, I had somebody reach out and say, "Hey, who is this? I realize I haven't called you in a while." And it was for my son. So to have those conversations, but had I not been used, that I feel like I'm being used to pour into these people that are trying to reach out to him and comfort them at the same time, because they're hearing the shocking news. Had I not been used and had you not used your talent, who knows where some of the companies you work with that you've helped turn around, who knows where they would be today, right? And so I want to talk about that for a minute. Like when you work with your clients, sometimes, Paul, sometimes people are not open to the things that the gifts you have, right? I mean, I will tell you, I feel things sometimes, and and I will dreams. If someone, oh, it's just a dream. Sometimes I'll dream, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, that came true. I didn't do anything with it, right? And I have a friend. His name is Seth Elliott Santoro, and he's an empath. He's an intuitive too, and I interviewed on the show one time here, and afterwards he's like, you have some really what do you call it? You have some really opinionated people around you. I'm like, oh yeah, all the time. He goes, no, like they're around you right now. I'm like, oh, I forgot, right? But and him and I were talking. He goes, Pearl, you need to listen to that. Like, and it's not like I want to go do anything or something like what you're doing it. But what he reminded me of, and for the listeners, we all have it, but we don't listen to it. We don't pay attention. Something comes through and we just let it go. And I have learned to really, truly listen to it, because last year when my son passed, we talked to him like probably 10 minutes before he passed. He butt dialed us, and we were able to say, call us when you get home, all the things your parents do. And we were able to say, we always said we love you before we hung up the phone. So we had that. When I was sitting on the couch about 15 minutes later, which we figured out by the timeline of messaging that it was probably within a few minutes of his passing, I was sitting on the couch and I was shaking uncontrollably that my husband's like, you're going to have a heart attack. And I'm like, this is not a heart attack. I don't know what's happening. So after that, after talking to Seth and some other empaths, were like, you felt him go through you. And I was like, okay, I've heard that happening, but I never had it. So had I never experienced it, I probably would still be like, yeah. But I've learned to listen to it when it comes and ask and pray, okay, what am I doing with this? Right. And so I want the listeners to know we all have that, but sometimes we get so busy we don't listen to it. So as you work with your clients, Paul, how do you help them understand the gift you have and understand how you can help them with their business? Because let's all be real here. Even some of the listeners right now listening to us are really like, yeah, you guys are woo woo and crazy, right? So how do you help them with that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Pearl. And just on gifts, because everybody every individual has a gift, okay, and their gifts are there for a reason, in order to help them with their life purpose. That's what they're there for. But because you are so comfortable with your gift, the vast majority of people aren't aware of what their gifts are. So, for example, when I was growing up as a teenager and I had this intuitive and the empathic side, I just understood or thought that everybody else was experiencing similar to me and getting the same kind of images and knowings and all that kind of thing. So I just thought, well, everybody else can do exactly what I do. I didn't see any difference. For me, it was no different. And that's the thing with gifts. It's like a bit like a fish in water. You don't know that you've got surrounded by water in effect, because that's what your gift is. So just for our listeners, for everybody to know, you've got gifts, and your gifts are aligned with what your life purpose is. But on the other side, to the other part of your question, in terms of how do I work with clients, I kept the intuitive and the empathic side very, very hidden throughout my early career. Because in Ireland, the last thing a business owner wants to hear about is, this intuitive or this empathic coming in and getting information that you can't prove it. And especially when it's an accountant or a business consultant coming in, it just doesn't happen. And it wasn't until much later in my life that, certain things happened, which again, we can talk about, but these things show up in our life in order for us to fulfill our purpose. So we're constantly being guided to fulfill our purpose. So when I was working with clients, on one hand, I'd know which clients would be open, let's put it that way. And you could say, what was that, the intuitive side, was the empathic side? Perhaps, but I just knew from having a very short conversation with a client, I knew kind of where they were at from a consciousness perspective. So therefore, I could temper the language that I was using with the actual clients. And then over a period of time of working with those clients, then they would start to ask questions. Well, look at, what do I do for X, Y, and Z? How am I so calm? How am I, not getting stressed out? And where am I getting, particular information from, and so on? So indirectly, I was helping them to develop their own intuition. Now, every single individual is intuitive. It's inbuilt within us as human beings. But as society, and growing up in school and our parents and all that kind of things, that's for what, in some respects, it's beaten out of us. But also from a scientific perspective, your intuition, the more you operate from the executive center part of your brain. So let's go into the science a little bit. the more you work from the executive center part of your brain. Now, for people to understand the executive center, it's the prefrontal cortex. It's literally it's located just behind your forehead. And its primary function is planning, objectivity, creativity, innovation. That's what it does. But most people, unfortunately, aren't actually operating from the executive center part of the brain. But your executive center is directly linked with your intuitive abilities. So that's and then into the unconscious and then into the superconscious. So that's how it operates. Unfortunately, the vast majority of people are operating from the amygdala part, and the amygdala wants instant gratification. That's what it wants. So it wants the glass of wine or the bar of chocolate or the sweets or whatever it might be. Now, how we've moved from operating from the executive center to the amygdala part of that, just as a very, very small example, is that most people have moved away from handwriting. So they will use their smartphone, iPads, keyboards, all that kind of things. We do very, very little handwriting now, unless somebody has either followed somebody like yourself or myself, or has been mentored by them, or they've read The Artist's Way or whatever it be. And now they hear about journaling. And journaling is handwriting. But yet I still hear some people doing journaling by typing. Journaling, just for me to explain, handwriting activates the executive center. That's what it does. And by activating your executive center, you're activating the intuitive side of yourself. So that's why journaling works. And that's where if you get into free journaling, whereby you allow your unconscious to take over, and now you're literally just writing what comes to mind, that's your pure intuitive coming true. So in answer to your question, in terms of clients, I determine where they're at from a consciousness perspective. And so I temper my language that I would use. The vast majority of clients they're very inquisitive. So they'll ask me questions. What is it I do? And therefore now that's how I kind of bring them through the different things that I do. But I would have clients whereby literally some of them are government organizations. Some of them are really, really successful individuals. And I remember one instance whereby there's a senior partner in an accountancy firm, global accountancy firm, and she read my first book, which is Evolve. And that's in that way I talk about, intuition, and I talk about spirituality and so on. And she said, yeah, I read your book with interest, but don't ever talk to me about that kind of language. So she was quite bluntly saying, don't talk to me about intuition. Don't talk to me about spirituality. And I just want to increase the profits. Tell me what I need to do. Which is fine. So it's different individuals where they're at in their journey in life. It's as simple as that.
I love that. I read it, but don't talk to me about it. It's so funny. It reminds me of like when we went through all that, and I had that conversation with Seth. He goes, "Do you want to sit down and do a session?" I'm like, sure, I'm open to it. I would love to, sit down. And so my husband and my son are like, oh, my younger son is 23, like, oh, that, whatever. But my husband said, had I not seen what happened to you when Matthew passed, I wouldn't have believed. Like, he's heard me say all the time, I get, for the people that are listening, for the moms especially, we call it listening to our gut. Yeah. And truly, you can call it listening to your gut, but it's truly that empathic thing, because oftentimes, like he's after seeing me with my son, he went back to years ago. It's been many moons ago where we're still living in California. So it's been almost 30 years ago. His younger sister had a boyfriend she wanted us to meet, and talk to before we flew out to go visit family in New York. We were living in California. And I'm like, okay, let's just hop on the phone and have a conversation. This is long before cell phones. So you had the landline you talked on. And we were talking, and when we hung up, and my sister-in-law, she's listening. I never told her this story, but we hung up, and I said, you need to get him away from your family. And he's like, my husband looks at me, he's like, what? I'm like, there's something there that doesn't feel right. He goes, based on what you talked about, like, we didn't talk about anything like personal. There was just some, like, I knew. And sure enough, he did some things later on. And my husband's like, you were right. I'm like, call it mom gut. Well, back then I didn't know anything. We didn't talk about those kind of things way back in the world back then. So now he looks at me, he's like, I'll listen to you, and I mean, even my business coach, I had this really powerful dream about her. And I called her and I said, can you promise me you go do this, this, and this? I'm like, it can mean nothing. She goes, did you dream about me? I'm like, yes, but I'm like, just please go do this for me, and she did. So, but yeah, so it's interesting how, part of us and the listeners that are even listening say, I believe it, but I don't want nothing to do with it. Right. And things like that. And like with coaching, I love the example that, that you shared that the lifesaver piece. And I feel like that too for my clients. I feel like as we help them see, like, they have the answers in their head, they know what the answers are. sometimes we get in our own way. And so, oftentimes people are like, why do I need a coach? I'm like, okay, well, how's life going for you now? Right? Like, I'm here to help you pull the answers out of your brain and start putting some of the things you need to do into place. And I love that you do that with the clients. And you're right, handwriting. I was like, we don't do handwriting anymore. And so when you work with your clients and being that lifesaver, do you have them do any kind of I mean, I know it's a little different because it's business versus, for me, personal coaching, but I'm very big on journaling. And you are so right. My oldest is 23. And when he was in second grade, they stopped doing spelling words. They stopped writing out spelling words. I'm like, and he got to fifth grade, and his fifth grade teacher's like, you are not leaving my classroom with at least learning how to do cursive, because he didn't know, his writing was atrocious. And to this day, I still write in cursive to my kids on their cards. And they're like, really, Mom? What's this say? But do you do like, I really love the journaling. I think it's really powerful. Like you said, it does get that, the mind there. So what do you do with your clients in the business sense? Like when you sit down with somebody, you're trying to help, become that lifesaver for them. How do you kind of walk me through that journey and walk the listeners through the journey? What are some of the things you talk about with your clients, and how do you help them see they kind of have the answers, but you need to guide them in some respect?
Yeah, I suppose there's two aspects that I work with clients on. On one side is there's the business mastery side of things, and then on the other side is the personal mastery. And for me, the two of them have to go hand in hand, because I can give them all the tools in relation to the business mastery side, but if somebody isn't fully aligned, or their confidence isn't right, or there's certain aspects, barriers or beliefs or something that's holding them back, well, then their business isn't going to work. So that's where I always work on a dual basis. In relation to your question in relation to do I get my clients to journal? Absolutely. But one of the first things I probably will encourage them to do is meditation. It's one of the first things. It will always come up, because meditation is setting the mind. And everybody, that if you do research into why would you meditate, what you'll find is that it increases your creativity, it reduces your stress levels, reduces your blood pressure. It, from my perspective, it increases your intuition, and it develops your creativity in relation to what it is for all aspects of your life and your business. So meditation is always the first one. From there on, yeah, one of the aspects will be around journaling. I call it automatic writing, and I will get it to a point with clients whereby they can have a conversation with their unconscious. So first of all, typically journaling will be, they'll just write down their thoughts of what's coming into their mind. And it's just a constant flow of those thoughts that are happening in a person's mind. But you can bring it to a point whereby you can ask a question when you get to automatic writing and you've developed your intuitive side. And intuition is all about trust. Every single individual is intuitive. And yet there are some people that dismiss it. But yet when you ask them, they'll always be able to recall a time where they followed their gut. And you've exactly said that, Pearl. We describe it sometimes as being, we'll follow our gut feeling. That's intuition. So in the business world, people will typically refer to it as gut. I've had a gut feeling. And you name it, right across the board, to people that don't believe in any kind of higher life, higher authority or anything like that in terms of God or universe and so on, they will still refer to their gut feeling. So where does the gut feeling come from? You've got to ask, because it comes from your unconscious, which is part of the overall superconscious, which is what we call God, the universe, and higher power, higher mind. So some of the things that I will start with, it will be around meditation and journaling. But for me, my first point of call is to find, at this stage now, when I work with individuals, is to find what their unique life purpose is. That's the starting point for me. And from my perspective, there's 4 elements that makes up your life purpose. When we've got that, and I call it in effect, here's the aviation terms, I call it your pilot's manual, because your pilot's manual, literally, it's the manual for life. It's what you're here for. It's what you're to do, what your mission is. And literally then with that, now you can take flight. And then that's when we start to work on your flight plan. Your flight plan is then, okay, so what does the business structure look like? And each individual is different. And it depends on where they're at in terms of if they're running a corporate or whether a solopreneur, small business, and they makes no difference. But we'll go through a flight plan. And that's basically looking at, okay, what will the business look like? What will the service offerings look like? What will the pricing model look like? What's in effect the whole business model? Who are the customers? Where are we going to go after them? Where will we find them? And all. So it's that's where the logical business consultancy side of things comes into play. And then as we move on from there, then it's literally working with them on a one-to-one basis to for one better word, guide them in terms of what needs to be done in the structures to implement within the business, but also what's holding them back from a personal perspective. Like, for example, confidence. And a typical thing that will come up for people is, who am I to do this? What will other people think? It's all those kind of confidence and limiting beliefs and self-sabotage and imposter syndrome, all of that aspect and so on. So I bring people through the personal mastery aspects of it. But I tend to use a blend of what I call coaching, mentoring, consulting, because as a coach, as you rightly said, Per, you can only ask questions, because again, it goes with the belief that the answers are within. But on the other side, business owners want speed, they want fast track, they want to tell, look, I want to get from A to Z as quickly as possible. So that's where the mentoring and the consultancy side of things comes into play. Because if it comes to, well, look at how do we build a website? What needs to be put into a website? They've never built a website before, so that they don't know. So those answers aren't within them from that side of things. So that's where the mentoring and the consultancy side aspect will come in. The lifesaver piece actually is, I've had so many clients say this to me, because I've had really, really successful individuals come to me and they've got everything from what the world classes as being successful. So they have all the money, they have the houses, they have the cars, the jewelry, you name it, they have all the holidays and this, that, and the other, and so on. But they are at the point of contemplating, or even have attempted, or are planning to check out of life. So that's what they come to me for, in terms of what is it they're here for? What are they to do? They know fulfillment in life. They don't have a purpose in life. They don't have, literally they're at a crossroads and they're just lost. And that's where they've literally turned around. One really strikes me from the point of view of, she's a lady, she's in the UK, she had 2 kids, and by the time we were finished, because I work with people, like, I can discover an individual's life purpose within a half a day. Now, for some people, they've been searching for 20 years, and you'll see all the reviews on my website. You'll say, I've been looking for 20 years, I've been looking for 10 years, I've been looking all my life in terms of trying to find out what my life purpose is. But yet, I can give the information for people within a half a day. And for her, she had already contemplated and was planning to check out of life. So they're the kind of people that will turn around to me and say, that's where they use the term lifesaver. Because now she's building her business. So she's still here, thank God. So I've had so many of those over the years. But for me, it's once they build a business. So and again, you don't have to be in business, because there's other clients I've worked with and they're building a career, but we'll change their career path. And they'll pursue a career in a different field or a different line of work and so on. And then now that's where they have that sense of purpose and the much, much deeper sense of fulfillment and meaning in their life. And I'll regularly get texts and emails and messages back from clients that I've worked with maybe, a number of years ago, and still thanking me to this day in relation to put them on the right track and the differences made for them. And it's about, from my perspective, I use the term when I work with clients, it's the ripple effect. You refer to paying it forward. For me, it's the ripple effect in terms of the intention that you go and you build within your business of what it is that you want to do for your clients and your customers. That intention, I'm going to say, from a universe perspective, from a higher consciousness perspective, intention is one of the most critical things that people should, I'm going to encourage people to hear on this one, should really take note of. Because when it comes to the end, your intention is what is questioned in every single aspect of your life. So when you build your intention around your business in line with your purpose, now it's about the ripple effect of the difference you're making for the people that you're going to be working with.
Okay, so that was a mic drop. It's so true about your intention. I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to that in a second. But I like what you talk about, like the flight plan, like creating the pilot manual and having the flight plan. I call that in for me, we have what's called the Shiro method. We create that roadmap. We identify the things that you want. What are the guide map of where you want to go with your life. Where are you today? Where do you see yourself? Which is why I created. We do a retreat every year. We have a women's retreat. We have our 7th annual one coming up this September. And we do it every September, and it's tied around self-care. You show up, we're in our pajamas the entire weekend. There's no makeup. And the reason for that is I believe that, as for women especially, we put on this mask to get up every day because we think we want to cover or hide what's our life challenges are. and what's holding us back. And at the pajama retreat, like Thursday night, we have a wine tasting, makeup removal. We get all the, and we get right down the nitty gritty. And I'm telling you, within hours, we start seeing people be comfortable, like stepping forward to who they are and being vulnerable to share what they're, what they're afraid to share. It's really cool because by doing that, sort of like what you said is they build that confidence. They get rid of that imposter syndrome. And I've had women who were estheticians and they decided that, after coming to the retreat, they decided, I don't want to do that. I want to make soaps. Like that's my passion. And she makes amazing soaps. We bring them to the retreats all the time now. Right. I've had somebody else too. We've been talking here for those that are listening. If you go watch Red, White, and Bethune on YouTube, Jen Bethune, she came to my retreat. She had a catastrophic thing happen to her son. She lost one of her sons in a horrible accident. And for her, makeup was her thing to go out the door every day. But I wanted her to share her story because it was so powerful. And she came to my retreat and she stood up without makeup on in her PJs and she shared her story. And leaving the retreat, she decided that I don't want to do this dog grooming thing anymore. And her husband packed up 5 kids, I think it's 5 kids, 4 dogs into a big Bluebird bus. And they've been traveling around the world. But here's the thing for the ripple effect I want to share with everybody. If some of you know about the Gabby Patino story, the young girl who we lost, who was killed by her boyfriend at the time, she played a part. She saw something happen and she was able to give leads to the investigators that helped find and, this help with this case. So you never know if you're sitting there listening to us and you're like, I have something I want to do, but I don't know how to do it. Paul or somebody like me, let us help you because you do have a talent, a gift that you need to pay it forward, but for yourself first, but then for others. And I, like you said, the lifesaver part, I think it's so powerful for me as a mental fitness coach to help, like what you're doing, help people see the money, house, the jewelry, all that stuff. That's like my mom lives in that material world. To this day, she is all about material. We're trying to pack her to move her here with us. And she's talking about knives from my grandmother was 40 years old. I'm like, you're not bringing knives here from 40 years ago, 60 years ago. Well, they were grannies. Well, what did you love about like all these things because they belong to somebody? But I'm like, let's talk about what the memory was. You don't have to have it here. You can build those memories. And I'm going to circle back to what you said about the intention at the end of our life. Like when you becoming that lifesaver, like you were sharing, oftentimes I'll have a client come to me and they will have worked with another coach. Right. And I'm like, so why me? Like, why do you want to come to me? Because you're already working with somebody. What wasn't working with that coach? And 9 times out of the 10, they will tell me, because they say they live this way, but they're doing the imposter syndrome and they don't live that way. And I see it on Facebook or I see it on social media. But Pearl, I watch you. You're out there sharing stories of your life and how you're doing it. Like people are like, I'm sharing the story of my son's passing and all the things. His actions led to his passing. However, some of the actions that happened after his passing, he didn't deserve. So we're sharing that story. But if you don't share that story, they're like, I believe that if I sit with you, you're not going to tell me what I want to hear. And it's so true. Like you yourself, Paul, that you help them you help them through the journaling. I love the meditation. I love meditation. I didn't know how to meditate till almost 2 years ago, this coming up January. And I had an amazing meditation coach. Her name is Sharon RG, who helped me learn how to meditate. And it's the most powerful thing in the world, just to sit and I meditate with nothing on, no music, no nothing. It's just my thoughts, and it's like you said, it's so powerful if you can start there. And then journaling and brain dumping. I mean, I call it brain dumping, exactly what you're saying. Like I just dump everything that's on my head. That's the first way I started to journal because I had no clue how to journal either. And once I did that, you're right. I found my tasks. So I found my to-do list. I took those off, but then I physically would throw away the rest so I could get rid of the stuff that was holding me back. And that physical piece of throwing it away was so powerful for me. But I like what you said. I'm going to circle back to the fulfillment and living with intention. Because I love, I didn't put myself first for many years, almost 15 years. Once we adopted our oldest at a month old. Then a few years later, we had our son, Nate, and we tried for 10 years to have a family. And that's what, at that point, after 10 years, I'm like, oh, I finally can be a mom. But in my head, I had all these expectations by society of what I should be doing. which led to me not showing up for me and putting my dreams and my goals on a shelf. And once I started to realize that, I am too much of a people pleaser. I am restless. So I need to slow down. I need to enjoy life. I need to say yes to me and no to others. And I need to say no as excitedly as I say yes. Then I started realizing that I was opening doors for others to say yes to things that I knew I was showing up for, not fully. But I realized I was leaving a legacy behind for my family, that if I was to not be in this world tomorrow, and I want the listeners to listen to this, if tomorrow you're not here and all your family could say is what they saw you do for yourself, what are they going to say? Are they going to say, oh, she had a lot of money, she had a house, she had jewelry? No, that's not things you did for yourself. Those are actions you took that helped you buy those things. But truly, if all they could do is talk about your self-care and what they saw you go do, what are they going to say? And for me, my kids will say at a certain age, my mother came to us and said, hey, I need to start doing some things for myself. So I'm in my bedroom. Don't bother me unless somebody's dying and has to go to the hospital because I need to take time for myself. Or they might tell you how they saw me sit in my front porch swing. Or they might tell you how they saw me go once a quarter and take a staycation. I mean, I'm in Tampa, Florida. I'm by every kind of beach you can think of, that I did that. Or they might even tell you that they saw me hop on a plane within 3 hours to go and get away from myself and go check on a friend, right? So that's a powerful thing to be able to, I feel now I can say about myself. So if you're listening and you're not sure how that answer would be for you, that's when you need somebody like Paul or myself to help you find out what is your life purpose. You know what it is. You've just been burying it. And I think it's powerful that as a business owner myself, Paul, who has a business coach, she does that with me all the time. I might show up and I'd be like, what was your success today? And I'm like, oh, well, I didn't get this. No. You are where you are. If I said I didn't get my homework done, okay, you didn't do it for a reason. It's don't look back. And that's the big thing for me is life's not a remote. I can't rewind it. But what's a lesson I can learn that held me back and how can I go forward? And then start listening more to those that are listening, your gut, whatever that is, you've got it in there, but listen to it, like meditate, journal, that will help activate all of that. So I want to thank you for sharing that, Paul, and sharing that journey with others as well. I think it's empowering, and I'm so glad that your clients are receiving that benefit on that as well. So I'm doing a little shift. I want to talk about Paul for a second. So I love talking on the show about self-care, about, like, as you heard me say, how do you show up for yourself? So what does Paul do for self? What do you do for your self-care as well? What's your favorite thing you like to do for self-care?
Yeah, I suppose that there's two aspects of self-care, two completely opposite. On the one side, so as I said, you'll hear my aviation terms, you'll see the different aviation elements there behind me, and so on. But so I'll always look at ways of how I can do experiences that are flight related. So last year, for example, I did what's called a biplane wing walk. So a biplane is where you've got, two wings stacked up on top of each other. So it was one of the old vintage airplanes. So I was strapped to the top of the top wing on the biplane, brought up to 4,000 feet. And that's where you do aerobatics in the air. So basically it's a bit like doing loop-the-loop and twists and turns and G-force 3 and all that kind of things in the air. So on one side, that's part of my self-care, to be quite honest, because it's all those experiences in relation to flight. And, hopefully before I leave this planet is to get into space. That's my dream is to get in space and see the curvature of the earth. On the other side, self-care for me is it's actually walking in nature. In September, the first week in September, and the 3rd of September, I'm going to be walking the Camino de Santiago. So for people that aren't aware of the Camino de Santiago, it's typically referred to as a pilgrimage. And there's so many different caminos that you can walk, but the one that I'm walking is what's called the French Way. So it starts with I've started many years ago in the Pyrenees, Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, in France, and you walk over the Pyrenees, and you finally 1,000 kilometers later you end up in Santiago Cathedral, St. James's Cathedral. So this year on the 3rd of September, I'm doing the last. It's roughly about 110, 112 kilometers. walk. And that for me, so I'm doing it with a group that I'll be heading to. And so it's over 110, 112 kilometers over 6 days. But for me back home, it's walking in nature, and it has to be around. There has to be forestry, there has to be trees, and there has to be a large body of water. That's where I find the most highest energy points. So for tomorrow, I will actually be doing a 14-kilometer walk. So that for me is self-care.
Wow. Okay. So experiences like on a plane, that's so cool. So I have a fear of heights, and all my girlfriends and all some of my clients like, we're going to take you zip lining. I'm like, we did that a few years ago at the beach. Like, yeah, you were over a parking lot that wasn't zip lining. We're going to take you to the mountains one time. I'm like, oh, I don't know. And then I was like, okay, God, if I'm supposed to die during zip lining, just make it happen. It'll be a beautiful thing. Right. So it's like, it is what it is. But, and then going to space, how cool is that? That my son has that thought too. He'd love to be in space sometimes. So I think it'd be a beautiful thing to see the world from that perspective, and how tiny we really are in the big scope of everything, right? And I think for us as individuals too, we're just this tiny little piece of the world that's happening around us. But how big do you want to make an impact on that world is up to us, right? And then I have to tell you,
just to add that piece, Per, before you go on, we're a tiny speck within the universe, but actually we've got the universe inside ourselves.
Oh, I love that. That's so true. And then the last piece. So my business coach, Julie, her husband does the editing. So when he listens to this and he edits, I know she's going to be like, what? Because she has been trying to get me to do the Camino Santiago for a long time. She's done it, I think, once or twice before. And I think she's trying to do it again next year. So she's going to listen to me like, I'm going to call Paul. She'll probably reach out to you too to talk to you more about what you're doing as well. I think it's cool. And I think it's really important for those of us that are listening is your self-care can be as small as you want it or as big as you want it. Like you talk about, it can be as simple as walking in nature and just connecting with nature. It can be as simple as sitting on the front porch like I do and just listening to the birds go by, journaling. The point is you do something for yourself. You have to start somewhere, even if it's just 5 minutes. And some of the listeners that are listening, I know you're a mom or you're a dad and you're listening going, but I got my kids and da-da-da-da, and it's so busy. I feel guilty. You can sit down and watch a silly cartoon that they like to watch. I mean, when my kids were little, it was Barney. I don't know what it is today, but you can sit down and just watch a silly Barney show with them or watch a movie with your partner. And that's self-care. Or like me, my younger son loves to go to the movies. So we'll go watch a movie together. That takes time away from my phone, from everything around me. And I'm spending time with him. And my older one, oh my gosh, he played football and he had what I called football toes, the most ugliest toes from being banged up in cleats. But we would go for mani and petties. He'd get a petty while I was doing my mani, and we would have conversations. And for those that are listening, start with your kids young. If you got little ones at home, make that intentional time with them. Create that self-care time for you with them. And then as they get older, continue to do it, because I would have conversations with my son around the girls he's dating, around the fact that I made sure that when he went to college, he had condoms with them. Like I would have those conversations with them. And then it turned into, we would do sushi lunches. So my kids, as they got older, if Matt called me and said, hey, Mom, you want to have sushi? I knew that he wanted to talk. I knew that meant he needed to have conversation. Or if Nate said, hey, you want to go grab a sub and catch a movie? I knew that was time with me and or conversation, that he wanted to talk about something. And so it's really important to understand that self-care has to be your number one thing, because when you don't pour in yourself, you can't show up for your loved ones and everything else that you want to do in your life 100%. And I love that we've talked about that today, Paul. I love that we've shared on that, especially from the perspective of you being a male. Because let's be real, sometimes us women, we think that men don't get it and understand it. And it's very refreshing to see somebody like yourself that says, I get it, Pearl. I want to go and do these self-care things. I want go on a biplane. Oh my God, I would have been like, oh God. But like, just to know that even from that perspective, it's it's refreshing, like I said, to have somebody else to understand that. So this has been so much fun. So we're still got a little bit more to go, but tell everybody, Paul, how they can find you, where they can reach out to you. And if you have anything you want to share that you want to give away or anything, feel free to do that too.
Sure. Yeah. The best way is probably if people go to my website, which is paulwilliamdavis.com. And on there's a whole load of resources. There's the what I have, which is the Genius Unlocked course. And the Genius Unlocked literally discovers for an individual what their life purpose is. And it's not like anything you'll have come across before, because it actually is aligned to your unconscious blueprint. So that's the Genius Unlocked. And if you want to find out what your genius archetype is, I have a free quiz, which is your genius role. Because I've identified 10 different genius roles, and an individual will play one of those roles throughout their whole life. So if you want to find out what your genius role is and what your strengths and elements that you want to look after and so on, there's a free quiz on my website. So yeah, easiest is just go to my website, paulwilliamdavis.com.
And we will make sure everybody has that link and everything and all the show notes and everything. But it's very simple. It's his name, paulwilliamdavis.com. So I forewarned Paul before we got on here that we were going to do our cards. So I'm shuffling the cards right now on you, Paul, so people don't think that I've set you up. So tell me when to stop and we'll figure out what. So for those that are listening for the first time, we have what's called Better Questions, Better Life cards. These were actually done by a good friend of mine, Carol Gill, and her friend, Diane Allen. I believe there's like 77 cards in here. You can go to betterquestionsbetterlife.com. I get no kickback on it, but talk about meditation and journaling. These are great cards to journal on, meditate on, or just to have a thought process around the card. So we're going to have Paul pick a card and then we're going to discuss his answer. So here we go. Tell me when to stop.
Alrighty, stop.
Okay. Your card says, how do I shine my light? How do you shine your light?
That is so ironic. And here's the reason being, because when I sign my books, and I'm sending to people that have ordered it, Evolve, the first book, I always assign it as being Let Your Light Shine. That's how I sign it, because, and again, I could speak on this for hours, because we are all light beings. And if you go back to the origin of light, it's a messenger. So an angel is a messenger, and we're all light beings, and we're here for a message. We're here for a purpose. So for me, shining your light is literally fulfilling what your life purpose is here. Your every single individual is here for a life. They have a unique life purpose. It's a life purpose that's with them throughout their whole life. It doesn't change. It develops, it grows, and evolves. Doesn't change. And by shining your light, you're actually fulfilling your life purpose.
I love that. You're so right. We've been talking about that this whole show, about shining your light, finding that light, and it's so funny that card come up for you. I truly do believe, like, for me, like, how do I shine my light is along the lines of what we've been talking about today, but remembering that I'm not promised tomorrow. And who would have known a year ago, July 25th, that reality was going to slap me in the face, and to truly, embrace every minute that I get with anybody and everybody that comes into my world, because I believe it's a gift. And I also believe at the same time that your light has to continue to shine. So that also means, for those that are listening, that sometimes you have to take people out of your light because they are not allowing you to shine. So sometimes you have to say, who's on my balcony that doesn't belong on my balcony anymore? And I credit my friend Lisa Pulliam about the balcony comment, because sometimes I keep you from being what I call the Shiro you are, being that strong, happy, empowered, radiant, original self that you're meant to be. And so as you recognize who or what is dimming your light, like we've been talking about today, it's really important to work on that. It's important to meditate, as we've talked about, to journal about it. And if nothing else, for those that are listening, if you want help with that, is to reach out to somebody like Paul or myself and ask for help. Ask for, how do you keep your light shining? Because it's so, so powerful. And I want to remind everybody, if you are watching us on YouTube, please subscribe. If you want to find us on YouTube, it's very simple. It's Conversations with Pearl. That's everywhere, on Spotify, on YouTube. You can find us on the internet with Conversations with Pearl. We're also on 360 Talk Radio for Women. So we love being part of that platform. And I just want to also tell you that if you want to learn some steps to self-care, we've talked a lot about self-care. You can go to pearlsebook.com. That's pearlsebook.com. And you can download our ultimate steps to guiltless self-care. It's just a few simple steps to get yourself started. And last but not least, I want to remind you, and first of all, thank Paul so much for being here with us today. It was very refreshing having a gentleman remind us that self-care is for both us women and for men. And it's really powerful that we do take care of ourselves and to listen to our gut. And if you need help, get that help and guidance. But remember, you come into this world as this amazing oyster. You're a little rough on the outside, but as you open it up, you do find your own inner pearl. And I hope you go out today and I find your inner pearl of greatness. Make it an amazing day. you've been listening to me for a little while, but I wanted to really explain to you what a shiro is. You hear me talk about on the radio show and the podcast often about what is a shiro. And what I want you to know is a shiro is you. You are listening today and you are a shiro. But what do I mean you're a shiro? So a shiro is somebody who is strong. You have so much strength and maybe you don't know it. Maybe you're not seeing it inside yourself and you need help tapping into that. And that's what I love to help women do, is to find your strength within and help you pour it out of yourself, help you become the strong person you are. And H stands for happy. You know, we all want to be happy, but sometimes finding the roadmap to happiness isn't easy. And so sometimes we have to help make that deep dive into answering heartful, soulful questions about what does it really mean to be happy? What brings me joy? What do I need to say no to so that I can become the person I want to be and the strong person I want to be that's also happy? And then empowered. You are empowered just by listening to this podcast that we do or the radio show to be the person that you are meant to be, that person inside, that little girl that's inside, just waiting to come out. We want to empower you through our Shiro method to become that strong, happy, empowered person that you are. But it's not an easy step. So, we have to cut through the fluff and the excuses and the drama and the mess so we can make that progress. Because as we start making the progress, then what happens is you start seeing the radiant you. You start arriving at the level that you've created, that divine roadmap, where you're finally starting to live intentionally. And as you live intentionally, then you realize your strength really is powerful, that your happiness is meaningful, and that you are empowered to pay it forward to others, to do the things you want to do without guilt, because you deserve it and because your radiance is showing. And then as you work through that progress, then what happens is you become your original self. You become that authentic you that you're supposed to be. Like you've done that deep soulful work and you're starting to make that path of satisfaction and that happiness you've been craving. And so you start laying down the foundation of your success. When you wake up in the morning, you find yourself looking in the mirror and realizing that you don't recognize your old self anymore, that you see yourself reflected everywhere in your stride, your relationships, your career, and even your hobbies. So as you align your outward trajectory with that inward path, you start gaining that clarity and that confidence and courage to focus and follow your internal direction. So really, that's what a Shiro is. And it's not easy to get there, right? We need to learn the steps to become that true Shiro, to tap into those superpowers that you have within. And that's why we have what's called our Shiro League. And if you want to join a community of women that are working on exactly these things that we're talking about, that are becoming strong, that are happy, that are empowered, that are radiant and original, that want to tap into things that bring them joy and say no to the things that don't let them enjoy the things that they want to do. We meet every Sunday evening from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern time on Zoom. No makeup. If you want makeup, you can, but just come in to be your radiant self, to be that original person you are. Because really, as you look at your biggest sources of stress, we want to help you with our Shiro League and our Shiro method to help you listen to that internal compass so you can start decluttering your distractions and really identify what's really missing in your life. Like what brings you joy and we're not talking foo-foo feeling stuff, like really what fills your cup? What makes you so happy to put your cape on first? And as we do that and you become that Shiro you're meant to be, then what happens is you are radiant. You have created an opportunity to release what you need to say no to so that you can start fulfilling your purpose. So you can start stepping out of your comfort zone and really into what brings your joy. And our Shiro method roadmap is that crucial step of helping you to live the life you want to be that Shiro you want to be, to tap into what it is you deserve to do, what it is you've been desiring to do. And listen, if you're a mom and you've got kids and you're a working mom outside the house, you're not all about the mom title. You are Pearl. You are Sue. You are Jacqueline. You are Stella. You are somebody that matters and somebody that has goals and visions that deserves to create that divine roadmap so that you finally begin and, like I said, live your life intentionally. So if you're ready to do that and you want some help with that, I would love to invite you to a free call with me Just let's talk about where you're at, how you get to where you want to go. What are your goals? What brings you joy? What do you need to say no to? And I would love to help you peel back those layers so that you can arrive at the real answers, so that we can cut away the fluff and the excuses and the drama and help you make that real progress. Because we're not promised tomorrow. We're not promised the next 30 seconds. And if you are here and you're listening, then you know that we are about putting ourselves first. We're about putting that cape on first. We're about finding your true, authentic self and learning how to overcome people pleasing and start tapping into your superpowers. Because as you tap into your superpowers, you then can take care of those you love, the things you love to do, even better than what you're doing today. Because when you put yourself first, you can become the Shiro that you're meant to be. And your superpowers will help even take care of your family and your loved ones to a much bigger success than you're already doing. So if you're ready to tap into your superpowers and ready to find out how to become your true Shiro, I want you to email me, Shiro at pearl@wsliving.com. That's Shiro at pearl@wsliving.com. And I would love to help you become the Shiro of your life.